Welcome to Eastlands podcast. This is episode 5. We're about to welcome a good old friend of mine, Chris Mundy. God, he's got a beer brewed in Tasmania. How you going, Mundy?
Not bad, are you, Tim?
Good, very good, mate. Very good. You worked out how to use this Zoom thing?
Sort of, with a bit of help from my kids.
Kids, are they teenagers yet, or how old are they?
Now you're making me think.
Sure.
Eldest boy, Jack's 15, yep, and
Wow.
my youngest boy, Henry's 12.
Wow, so they are teenagers pretty much.
They are teenagers, yeah.
Do you remember when we were that age? Can you remember when we were that age, Chris?
Oh, I can remember, Tim. And
Can
I can remember you were pretty well behaved compared to
My brother Nick.
your brother Nick. That's exactly right. I remember clearly a little party that Nick organised at your parents' house when your parents, I'm not sure where your parents had gone to, they were away.
Went out for a piss up somewhere, yeah. But yeah.
I remember a coffee table sort of going in slow motion down the stairs and taking a dive through the front windows, and then the aftermath. I think I was one of the people that sort of sobered up really quickly and sort of suggested people get out of the house after that.
Can you remember how old you were when that happened? Can you remember how old were you?
Oh, I really don't know. Probably not old enough to be drinking, but I think most
Close
of us
to it would have been pretty close to 18.
It was pretty close to, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, I still remember the bloke that launched the table from the top of the stairs.
Who was that?
Shouldn't name names. Aaron Sacco.
Fucking Aaron Sacco. Do you ever run into Aaron at all or not?
I haven't seen him for years. I occasionally run into his brother Cade.
Oh yeah, younger
yeah,
brother.
He's actually,
yep.
Yeah, younger brother. He's actually mates with one of my neighbours.
Right.
Yeah, but no, Aaron. Oh, it'd be probably 10 years since I've run into Aaron.
So who knows? Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah.
I think I don't know. Rumors he may have 5 kids. That's the rumor I heard here, but I'm not sure if that's true.
5 kids. Wow.
Maybe that's possibly, but I don't know.
That's a good effort.
That is a good effort. I haven't had any kids, but you've done well. You've got 2 teenagers, so
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's going way back. I mean, he only used to live down the road from where I used to live. From I think the age of 10 to about 21, lived in the same street, and just only about 100, 200 meters down the road. So it wasn't very far. So we'd obviously get up to a bit of mischief from time to time. That was one instance that was quite memorable, I guess, when Nicholas did that whole thing, and it would have been about when he was 14, 15, or some ridiculous age like that. And it wasn't, a couple of years later, he basically left for the Navy, if you remember.
Yes, I do remember. And Nick always, he was a real salesman, wasn't he?
It's something. You want to look at something interesting. I did do a podcast with him about a few days ago. Actually, it was the first time I let him in the podcast series, and you should see how different he is now compared to how you remember him, mate.
I haven't had time to watch the podcast, but I've seen the the picture of him on the podcast, like the ad for the podcast, and I thought, wow, that does not look like the Nick I remember.
Definitely not, mate. But he's been like that for probably most of the last decade. He's sort of really, he's very, I guess he's become Chinese, I guess you can say. He lives over there. He's been over there for 18 years or something, since 2002. Wow. He got married to a Chinese girl who's had 3 kids. I think they're about 12, 10, and 5, maybe.
Yeah.
So he's got 3 of them that are running around. 2 of them that have been to Australia, and the youngest one hasn't. But no, he seems to be going okay. He's always, as I said, a salesman, always able to do well for himself and keep him, obviously what his thing over the more recent years, running, trying to sort of rub shoulders of anyone famous that comes into the area. So he's pretty close to that Hong Kong China, Shenzhen border. So Shenzhen's like a really big city over in China.
Yeah.
Number of people bigger than any city, obviously, in Australia. I've been there probably about 3 or 4 times over the years. Yeah, no, he's doing okay, and he's obviously got a vested interest in what's been happening, I guess, with coronavirus. And,
How has he found himself with all that rubbish?
yeah, no, I think he's being I think it hasn't. Well, because he's in recruitment, and it's affected that part of the business, that part of his business dealings a bit. But he, he certainly knows. He can certainly find his way into whatever he needs to find his way into. Nick. His wife is just a lovely lady, and she works so hard. His wife, Wang Lu, she works fucking really hard, like long hours, and they used to have nannies and stuff, but I think he's sort of more staying at home quite a bit lately. So since coronavirus has sort of hit, but yeah, it's quite interesting over there, and he's very smart and knowledgeable, and he's been for a few different religions as well. So I think he's currently Mormon.
Seriously,
yeah, he's a Mormon.
I would not have picked that.
No, he's done the Jew thing, and he's done a
Wow.
few different he's done a few bit of all of that sort of stuff. So, but he's fine. I mean, he comes back down here this way every couple of years anyway. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. So I want to find out what's been happening with you, mate. It's been a long time since we spoke. A long time. A couple of decades.
Well, I need to find out what's happening with you too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
it has been a long time.
It has been a long time. I think I can't remember the last time we spoke, but
it'd probably be when you've visited Tasmania in the
more than a decade ago, probably.
Yeah. I was actually intending to get in touch with you last year. I was in Queensland, and it just never happened. We spent a month driving up the east coast of Australia with our caravan last winter. I'm glad we didn't leave it till this winter. One of those things you put off. If it had been left to this winter, it wouldn't have happened, obviously. We ended up as far north as Yeppoon in Queensland, and sort of had good intentions of driving all the way to Cairns, but I think all we would have done then, Yeppoon in Queensland. I think if we had driven all the way to Cairns, all we would have done is spend a month on the road and not enjoyed it. Was awesome time, but I wish we had another.
So you went all the way from up on there. Did you just drive across the boat and go?
Yeah, just jumped on the Spirit of Tasmania, and we did Melbourne to Sydney in a day. That was an experience, coming into Sydney in the dark, towing a caravan with a GPS.
Well, at night time it wouldn't be as bad as during the day, I guess. But dark, I guess,
with a GPS that was out of date, it sort of sucked.
I would have,
Then my wife and boys, I found this dingy-looking little caravan park. I said, "We're stopping here," and all in chorus said, "No, we're not." And so we did a few laps of Sydney and found our way to North Narrabeen that night, which was lovely. We stayed there for a couple of nights and then slowed it down and continued up the coast.
So of that trip, what was the highlight of that trip, Muzza?
That's hard to say. There was a lot of enjoyable bits. My 15-year-old boy Jack loves to fish. We did an awesome fishing charter with a fella in Yeppoon, which I'd give a plug to, Travis Lacey. Works for a crowd called Go Fish Charters, I think. That was a lot of fun. Lots of different family moments along the way. Hard to say. Yeah.
So the fishing at the end, up at the top there, well, as far as what you went, was pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeppoon, I'd actually recommend it as a destination for someone like myself from Tassie that probably doesn't like to be surrounded by thousands of people. It's been a little bit left behind by the tourism scene, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that was the sort of place we were probably looking for, towing your caravan up the East Coast. If you want to go to the population centres, you may as well jump on an aeroplane and go there, I think.
Yeah, no, fair
Yeah.
enough. How long have you had your caravan for?
This particular one, couple of years. Yeah.
Not too long. Okay.
Not too long. No, I had a caravan before that, but yeah.
The parents, they retired for probably about they've been retired at least 5 years. They got a caravan probably about 3 or 4 years ago, about 4 years ago, and they did the whole outback thing. They went to WA and Northern Territory and outback everywhere, I guess. So they've done their dash as far as the grey nomads are concerned, and now they've sort of settled in about an hour drive from here up the Sunshine Coast.
And they love the grey nomad thing, or they're done with it now?
Well, they might be possibly done with it now. They're both sort of, mum's, they're sort of in their late 60s, 70s, so they're getting a bit older. So they've done that. At least they were able to do that, and they obviously really enjoyed it as a way to sort of, start their retirement. So that's what they sort of did, and they, as I said, they just bought a unit up at Maroochydore overlooking the river there. So
nice.
Which was quite good. I've been in Brisbane since 2000. It's about 20 years I've been up here, mainly on the north side of Brisbane. So first year, I think. So most of the time on the north side. Brisbane's a small place, and it's teeny tiny when you've been here as long as 20 years. Everyone seems to know everybody. It's small. It just seems pretty small. Even though there's obviously a couple of million people in the surrounding areas, but it just seems like everybody really. What's it like down there at the moment? Because you're at Sanford, aren't you? You sort of is it off Rifle Range Road or whereabouts?
Yeah, I'm just off Rifle Range Road. I think, we built here probably 18 years ago.
Really, so pretty early on in the century.
Yeah, and it's a great place to live. I guess I've probably been doing social isolation for a little while, really. Not totally.
How much land have you got there?
8.5 acres. So we've got a little bit of space around us, enough. My wife Nikki is into horses, so she's got a few paddocks for horses, and
definitely.
Yeah.
What's the most number of horses that she's owned in that time?
No, she's only got the one horse, and my young boy Henry, 12-year-old, he's got a horse as well. It's a dangerous, expensive thing owning too many horses, I think.
Yeah, I've seen that firsthand. One of my old girlfriends way back, her sister had about fucking 20 miniature horses.
Yes.
They're all fucking miniature horses. There'd be like one stud and all the rest would be females,
They are a gaping black hole of money, horses.
I'm not going to, as an accountant, I'm not going to argue with that one.
No, I'm sure you won't argue with that one as an accountant. They're not a good financial life choice. But for some strange reason, people enjoy them.
Yeah, for sure, mate. So back in those old days, so you went to Dominic, didn't you? I think. Remember?
I did go to Dominic. Yep.
And I remember that. And then, so Dominic, you went there till year 12?
Yes, I did. I was the last stream of students to actually go. The screen just went sideways. To go through year 12.
Yep.
Through Dominic, it then became Guildford Young College.
Okay.
But I don't know. I got good memories of going to school there. It was a good place to go to school. Really good people.
One other sort of memory from back in those days. I remember. I'm pretty sure you were there when we sort of had a bonfire at the Girl Guide camp. Can you remember that?
Oh, I might remember being there when we had a bonfire at the Girl Guide camp and got a ride home in a paddy wagon. I might have been one of the instigators of that, I believe.
We used to get those. We used to like go into the Girl Guides camp at Arana, and we used to, if they had any chocolate biscuits in the fridge, we'd just fucking steal them and
Just help ourselves. Yeah.
we'd go and get those light tubes and have sword fights down the beach.
You could say we were bits of bastards of kids at the time, and if my own kids did it, I'd kick their ass. Yes, we probably got away with more than we should have when we were younger, Tim.
But I mean, at the end of the day, there's a few. I guess there's a few instances like that, and I mean, it was not like we were like fucking. It was like an everyday occurrence that we'd be in a paddy wagon. It was probably a once in a lifetime experience for some of it.
That's been a once in a lifetime experience for me, I'd like to say, but yeah, I guess we can say we've done it once, Tim. Lucky we never made a habit of it. We might have turned out to be really different people.
No, I think, well, man, one thing I admired about you, even as a kid, I remember, you're always a fairly level-headed guy. You always you had a good nature about you. You're a very friendly sort of guy. You never sort of try to make any enemies with anybody in the street, or you're pretty friendly with everyone from Gene Bartram down to the Andrew Trail to everybody. Was fairly neighbourly. I think you used to live next door to Brendan Smith for a while too.
Yeah, I did. I lived next door to Brendan Smith for all the time I lived in Lauderdale.
Yeah.
No, you caught up with him of recent years?
No, Brendan, no, I haven't actually. I haven't seen Brendan for a long, long time. But I'm probably his Facebook friend, but I haven't actually seen him face to face. I might try to reach out to him again, but
yeah,
haven't seen him for a long time. No.
Very different. I've bumped into him over the years a couple of times.
Yeah.
Very different individual to I remember as a teenager.
Yeah.
Used
to be very sporty for a while.
Yeah. Now he's last time I seen him, he was a tattoo artist. And,
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Free spirit.
Really broken the mould of the sort of bloke he was as a teenager. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they always had the pool next door to you, and I remember in the pool, and then they moved up to Acton or somewhere. I think.
Yeah. No, my mum still lives in that same house in Blue Street there.
Oh.
Yeah, and
does she? Wow.
Yeah, that'd be. I wouldn't know how long she's lived there now. Dad passed away. I think it was 4 years ago now. I wondered whether Mum would pack up and move after that, maybe go to Bellerive or somewhere. But
because you got a sister as well, haven't you?
I have, Annette. I've got 3 sisters. Younger sister Annette and 2 older sisters, Gillian and Joanne. Yeah, you've obviously met my younger sister Annette. You probably haven't met my older sisters. You may have met Gillian. I think I moved to Lauderdale when I was about 12 years old, and
that's Gillian, about when I went there.
Yeah, Gillian, my older sister, she moved down there. But the next oldest one, Joanne, had already moved out of home at that stage.
Yeah. They would. Obviously, you were the third.
Yes. But Annette actually lives in Lauderdale still. She's living in a little house almost opposite to where you grew up as a child.
So along Blue Street, basically.
Yeah. No, so she's actually not far from where Mum lives.
Just down the road.
Yeah, just down the road. No.
That's all interesting stuff. So, as far as do you sort of still into sailing and that sort of thing? I remember you used to be part of the yacht club.
Yeah,
yacht club. Yeah.
I've been a member of that yacht club for too many years now, I suppose. Since I moved to Lauderdale, basically.
3/4 of your life, basically.
Yeah. We hosted a national title there last year, F18 Catamaran National Titles. I sailed in that one. I'm still sailing. yeah. No, not a lot's changed in that regard.
Kids, any of the
No.
kids like sailing? Or they love fishing?
Jack, my eldest boy, he's done a bit of sailing. He's since decided he doesn't want to. And yeah, Jack just wants to fish 24/7. And Henry, my youngest boy, he's had a go at sailing, but it's not really his thing. Yeah, no, he's into the horse stuff, and he's other interests. He's a very good little musician, and
Who's Henry?
Henry, my youngest boy,
Yep.
and his pride and joy is a old 28 Ferguson tractor. Loves it, loves machinery,
Mm.
which is not a bad thing because I'm a bit that way inclined myself.
Mm. So as far as you sort of, since your I guess started adulthood as a career, you sort of what sort of jobs and stuff have you had? Like, has it always sort of been doing refrigeration mechanic stuff or other stuff as well?
I never intended to do that. That sort of found me. I started out doing a Bachelor of Science at university,
Mm.
marine, Antarctic, and freshwater biology.
Yeah, I remember that part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a couple of years of that, and then left that and did a job which was never going to last. Working, it was a place that sells rubber products and hose. That's a storeman, salesman sort of job, and as soon as I got there, I knew it was never going to last. It bored me. I didn't enjoy it, and yeah, through I don't know really how it happened. I think a cousin of mine suggested I write a letter of interest to a company called Par Air Conditioning. Reckoned I'd be good for the role of a refrigeration and air conditioning mechanic apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turns out, I never got a job at Par Air Conditioning, but got a job at another crowd called Southern Air, which Par Air Conditioning had just purchased.
Right.
And it was probably one of the more fortunate accidents that's happened in my life. It's actually probably a career that fits my skills and interests reasonably well. And turns out once you're a refrigeration air conditioning mechanic, you're never going to end up on the dole.
No.
You know, it's an in-demand trade. There's always been a skill shortage in that area. I've worked for a few different companies. For a while, I left there and went and worked as a TAFE teacher.
Oh, really? Okay.
Teaching that trade.
Mm-hmm. How did that go?
Yeah, to tell the truth, it's interesting. It's a bit of a sink or swim experience. You expect you're going into this stable, organised government job, and everything's going to be mapped out for you. You roll up there, and without any real teacher training to begin with, you start teaching classes. It's a bit of a fish out of water experience for the first few months, I guess. I'd say in the first, I did it for 3 years.
How long ago was that? How long ago?
Oh, gee, about 12 or 13 years ago now. I was probably fairly young in the role as a TAFE teacher. The first year, I'd say I was finding my feet. It was a pretty steep learning curve. The second year, I think I was probably a pretty good teacher. And the third year, I reckon I was probably a little bit bored. And I was glad to get out of there and go and do my trade again. After the third year of teaching the same material, I started to think maybe this isn't for me at this age. Probably something I'd seriously consider doing again in the future if the opportunity arose. And I'm glad I did it. It probably taught me a hell of a lot more about my trade as well. You go back and you teach that stuff, you've got to learn it pretty well in a big hurry. So I don't regret it at all. It was a great experience.
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, and financially, though, that was probably one of the other motivations to go and do my trade again. Unlike some trades, where I think the TAFE teachers, it's a job till retirement, a job for life, because they're financially rewarded better than they are doing their trade. Refrigeration mechanic job isn't a badly paid trade.
It's not, no, not from. And I've done a lot of tax returns for Frig Max mechanics, and you always seem to get the overtime rates are quite good, and the allowances, and so yeah, I agree that certainly it's certainly fairly well paying job compared to a lot of other stuff.
And it's provided you're not getting. I've had jobs where you're getting called at 4 o'clock in the morning every morning. But the job I've got now is not like that. It allows for a reasonable lifestyle. It's actually more lucrative than being a TAFE teacher. Which, for a lot of trades, that's not the case. So, once people are in that TAFE teaching system, they never want to leave.
I guess one thing that I thought that you might consider as a career, knowing, from your younger days and the way you sort of operate at a sort of intellectual, mechanical building type level, did you ever think about becoming a builder, or did you ever sort of go down that path of construction industry?
Not really. I mean, the job I've got, refrigeration mechanic's a bit of a jack of all trades.
It is.
I mean, I've done everything in this trade from, the crowd I work for now is Tassie's biggest refrigerated trucking company. I work on refrigerated truck and trailers, and their cool stores and everything in between. It's certainly done lots of construction work as part of my career anyway. This year we'll be probably doing one of the biggest refrigeration jobs that happens anywhere in Australia, a big new cold store for the parent company of the crowd I work for. I built my own house.
Well, that's what I mean. If you built your own house, that's you're a builder right there, aren't you?
No, I don't know. I guess I never sort of considered being a builder per se, but
but obviously you've got
tied in.
The skills are there though as well.
That's a fridge mechanic. It's a bit of an unknown. I don't think there's ever a kid that says, when I grow up, I want to be a fridge mechanic. And I'm sure a lot of people think of a fridge mechanic, they think of someone that fixes a few white goods. But it's a bit of a cross. It's a bit of a cross between an electrician, a plumber, a motor mechanic, and a builder. And the job I do is you probably add a diesel fitter in there as well, because we're working on
definitely
truck and trailer stuff. And the other weird thing that you'd add into my job, I probably wish I'd never introduced it to the company I work for, but we do a lot of fiberglassing as well. The fiberglass truck bodies. They're forever driving forklifts through the sides of those things. So that keeps us in a job. Yeah.
Oh man.
But no. So what beach am I looking at in your background?
I don't know. It might be 7 Mile Beach. I'm not sure. I think I could be 7 Mile Beach.
I wondered, was it a Tassie beach?
Definitely, I think it's 7 Mile from memory. But
Yeah, that makes sense now. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. So yeah. So obviously you haven't sort of moved too far, but you've obviously lived in the same area for quite a while in Sanford. Beautiful place. Lots of trees, lots of space. Just nice, fresh air as well. Beautiful place, and not far from, you can drive to Lauderdale 5-10 minutes, I guess. And Clifton Beach, that's obviously changed a bit over the years. How have you sort of seen your part of the world develop? What's changed the most, I guess, in the last 20 years in Lauderdale, Sanford, Cremorne, Clifton, all that area?
I guess just probably more so it's accelerated in the last few years. Population growth.
Yeah.
For a long time, population growth was pretty static in Tasmania, and I mean, before this coronavirus stuff, Tassie's economy was probably, as you would know, because I'm sure you keep track of these things as an accountant,
started to go really well.
Yeah, it was probably the envy of Australia in a lot of ways.
Well, certainly the property prices were going in a really good direction.
Provided you weren't trying to get into the market for the first time, you wouldn't have said it was a good direction.
Exactly.
But
was really affordable at one stage and jumped up quite quickly. It's certainly sought after, and and obviously they're doing something right there. In the sort of the government they've done a pretty good job over the years.
I think the frightening thing is Tassie had taken a real change of direction and really focused on international tourism as the backbone of the economy, and who knows what's going to happen now in the following few years.
Do you think that? I mean, you think that right now, sort of the last couple of years, it's still relying massively heavily on tourism, or is there enough going on in other industries in Tasmania? Or is it really really is a high percentage of tourism? Do you think?
I'm not the right commentator for this stuff,
no.
But
on the ground.
I would say that Tassie's much more focused on tourism than it has been or was before this coronavirus stuff than any other time I can remember in my lifetime.
Okay.
You only had to drive around the street, and the amount of hire cars, some of them very frustratingly driven by most definitely overseas tourists that didn't know our roads.
Or interstate tourists.
Yeah. And I think that possibly over the next few years, we're going to see a bit of a shift back toward a focus on primary industry, which had really been steered away from in Tassie. It was almost a dirty word. Yeah, I don't know. Watch this space, I guess. But I don't know. It's going to be a long time until tourism is the same as it used to be, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean, one area that I've been following very closely for about the last 5 or so years, and not sure if you're very interested in the place. I've been there 5 times in the last 5 years, and that's Queenstown in New Zealand. I don't know if you've ever been there. Have you ever been there?
No, I've never been there.
So I'm sure that from what I've been sort of reading about that place, they sort of their main industry is definitely tourism.
Yes.
And it's a huge part of their economy. So without overseas and and Australian visitors coming across, it's going to really affect their economy. I think probably a lot worse than even Tasmania is going to get affected. So it's quite interesting to see what's going to happen there. I mean, as I said, I go there quite often, and I'm actually investing in some property there currently. So it's quite interesting. But yeah, me and my wife sort of go there every year, and obviously looking at spending a lot of time over there. So yeah, if you haven't been there, mate, it's a beautiful place. I know you love Tassie, but do yourself a favour, take the family over there for a trip, man. It's the adventure capital of the world too. So you've got all the different bungee jumping and luge rides, jet boating, all the stuff in the water. All the stuff going out and seeing different things. Racetrack stuff, go-karts. Yeah, never ends the episode. Yeah, if you're wanting a holiday, mate, go over there as well. That's
nice.
If I'm there, come and see me. So that's what else have I? What else can I sort of talk about? Yeah, one of our good friends. I haven't heard from him for a long time, actually, probably 7 or 8 years. But I think you caught up with him in the last 3 or 4 years. Sometime, Gene Bartram. When was the last time you caught up with him?
Jane and I keep in touch quite regularly, actually.
When was the last time you heard from him?
Probably in a text message this morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Just fishing bullshit.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, actually caught up with Gene in person last year when we were travelling through the Gold Coast area.
Yep.
He come down and found us in our caravan, and we went and had a few beers, and I've kept in touch with Gene over the years. Obviously he's been on the Gold Coast for about the same period of time that you would have been in Brisbane, I'd imagine.
Man, I've seen him probably about half a dozen times in the last 20 years, but it's probably been about the last 6 or so I haven't seen him at all. But I hear from him from time to time. But I think the last, I saw he's sort of not on Facebook as much anymore. So
no, I don't know whether Gene's even on Facebook, is it?
Probably not at the moment. No, he used to be. I remember he used to be. And I used to text him that way, but I might make sure I've got his right phone number, because I've got 2 phone numbers listed. So I'll send you a message off air and just make sure I've got his right
not a problem.
phone number. But I just want to keep in touch with him, and haven't seen him for at least 5-6 years, I reckon.
Yeah.
So since the last time I went down there, but and sometimes you hear from him, but obviously you keep in regular touch with him, which is really, really good. But he's okay. Everything's going well for him.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a change of career probably since last time you spoke to him. There.
What's he doing now?
He's actually working as a painter. I reckon last time you were talking to him, he was a motor mechanic.
He's in similar careers, yeah.
Yeah, I think he got a bit jacked of poor remuneration that some motor mechanics get, and went and did another trade.
Did he ever get married or anything? Did he ever?
No, Gene's a single guy. I've caught up with him a couple of times when I've been in Queensland, and he's caught up with me when he's been in Tassie. I think the previous time I was in Queensland, he had a steady girlfriend, but last time I was in Queensland, he was single, and had a great time though. Went out on the beers with him, and Nikki, my wife, come and picked us up, and we stirred her up pretty hard in the car on the way back.
Fuck it out.
It's always great to catch up with Gene. He hasn't hasn't changed a lot since he was young.
I mean, every time I have run into him, and every time I have sort of gone down the Gold Coast and we met up, he seems to be the same sort of person. Let's be honest.
He's the same human being. He's just mellowed a bit with age, I think. As I think we all have.
I think he's always been a fairly mellow sort of guy, to be honest. He's always seemed to go with the flow a bit and doesn't take life too seriously.
Never took life too seriously.
From the outside, anyway.
He probably takes life a bit more seriously than he used to, and he was always a bit of a prankster when we were kids, if you remember.
Oh yeah, I do remember. Yeah.
I'll never forget him. His father used to come home from work at basically the same time every day, and he'd call by the Foreshore Tavern on the way home and have a beer. And
his dad would, or
his dad would, and he'd come in busting for a pee. So Gene, I don't know whether he's seen this on some. I might have seen it on Simpsons cartoon or something.
Probably.
But he covered the toilet in Glad wrap, took the light bulb out, and his old boy come in. We were in the lounge room or something. Runs straight into the toilet, take a pee, and of course it all bounces off the Glad wrap. Gene. It was hilarious at the time, anyway.
I remember that old wooden house. That was just that was like a termite's breakfast, wasn't it?
Cedar house. I think.
I know that's not there anymore. I think there's a different house there, but
is there a different? I don't think there's a different house. I think it's just been renovated, hasn't it?
No, they got rid of it. I'm pretty sure it's a completely new house. But
there you go.
I could be wrong. I do take note every time I used to go down and see my nan and that down there. I remember there's definitely a new house. Yeah, at some stage in the last 15 years.
And how's Hillary, your nan, going?
Yeah, no, Nan. I've got to give her a call sooner or later. It's been a few weeks since I spoke to her. But no, she's living up the Sunshine Coast as well. So she's probably. My uncle lives up the Sunshine Coast. Uncle Philip, I don't know, probably not ever met Phil, but and my dad lives up in Maroochydore. So the dad and Uncle Phil, and they're all sort of within, not very far. So Uncle Phil probably lives less than a kilometre away from the nursing home. And my cousin Tamika, which is Phil's daughter, I can walk from her house to the nursing home. So that's where we had Christmas Day, was at Tamika's place. We had Tamika couldn't have any kids. She adopted she's got a couple of foster children. But just walking distance from there. And I remember just on Christmas Day, I wheeled Nan down to back to the nursing home from where we had Christmas lunch. Rather than put her in a car, it wasn't worth getting her in the car. There's only a few hundred metres down the road. We just wheeled her back all the way back to the.
I can't imagine your nan ever needing a wheelchair. It's
she never didn't want her, but once you're about 90 or something, it's.
I guess she's a pretty old lady now.
Yeah, no, but she's still sort of with it. To be honest, I'm sure she'd still remember you. And she was, she used to, she'd mention you from time to time because you used to be in the neighbourhood and that sort of thing, over the last couple of decades. So.
Yeah, I often used to drop a feed of fish off to your nan over the years. No, I had a lot of time for your nan.
So that last time you went out fishing, where did you go?
Oh, I'd have to kill you if I told you that.
I'm not going to be. You're not going to see me out there stealing fish.
You won't get GPS waypoints out of me ever. No, we went. We actually left out of Cremorne because at the moment, with the coronavirus restrictions, you're not allowed to tow your boat out of your neighbourhood, basically, or certainly not out of your postcode.
Is Cremorne the same postcode as it? I think it is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm only I'd be less than a 10-minute drive from Cremorne.
Yeah.
And we did what was about a 96 nautical mile return trip down to southeast of Tasman Island, which is sort of the southeast corner of Tasmania, I guess. Out into the deep water on the edge of the continental shelf, and went fishing for striped trumpeter.
Was that trumpeter you picked up?
Yeah, that's striped trumpeter. Yeah. No.
How many did you catch?
Oh, there was 4 of us on board the boat, and I think we ended up with 13 fish, plus a heap of other different bycatch species. Yeah, you're allowed 4 of those fish each. Yeah, magnificent fish. Probably the best eating fish in the world, I reckon.
Really tasty.
It's beautiful fish, and they're awesome fun to catch. Rather difficult things to find at times. Yeah, so when you're finding them, you keep your GPS waypoints fairly closely guarded. One of those things that until the modern electronics that we take for granted nowadays came along were very difficult to find. But yeah, all those modern electronics have changed things forever, I think.
So I remember one of the things I used to do as a kid was I used to go to Bamber Reef and a bit of snorkeling and used to get the abalone. I don't know if you remember those days.
Yeah, I remember those days well.
Is there any abalone still around or not? Is it all gone?
There is. I think you'd be lucky to get a feed of legal size abalone off Bamber Reef now. You might get 1 or 2 legal size ones. Climate change has had a part to play in that too.
Of course, yeah.
Tasmania, from all the science, would suggest that Tasmania is seeing increased effects from global warming compared to a lot of other regions. The Tasmanian marine environment, especially off our east and southeast coasts. The East Australian current comes a lot further south every year, bringing with it, a heap of different species, and it's looking like that's having a big impact on the abalone industry. It's sort of intriguing from a fishing point of view. From obviously, I'm a pretty keen recreational fisherman. I mean, there's different species turning up here that sort of belong in New South Wales, for example. Yellowtail kingfish, which were pretty well an unheard. They're an unheard sort of game fish to target in Tasmania, even maybe 10, 15 years back. They're a common target species now. Pink snapper, another one that, they're pretty much, Port Phillip Bay was about the southernmost extent of them. They're another common thing that rolls up in Tasmania now. They're resident populations of them. Things have, cold old Tasmania, things have really changed. The water's warmer. I've actually, in my time spent out game fishing in Tasmania over the last few years, seen a couple of turtles as well. No one thinks of sea turtles being spotted in Tasmania, I don't think.
There you go. Wow.
Yeah, so things are changing, but where a new species moves in, I guess one moves out, doesn't it?
That's true. That's interesting to hear what's sort of going on and how sort of the movement of change is happening and how that's affecting what's in the ocean. That's and what's new things coming in and things going away.
They reckon it's happening, like the changes are more noticeable in the ocean than on the land. And certainly from what I've seen, mucking about on the ocean, they certainly seem to be. It's interesting though. The last couple of years have been a bit cooler. Previous to that, the couple of years before that were notably warmer, like sea temperatures were warmer and things were really different. But I guess it all goes in swings and roundabouts.
So what do the people sort of generally like in Tasmania these days? Does everyone seem to be fairly friendly? Is there people sort of get along with one another in your sort of neck of the woods? Are there any sort of issues with crime and that sort of thing?
People get along, I think. I think the pace of life in Tasmania has probably increased from what you remember it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think Tasmania's probably compared to obviously the more populated areas in Australia. It probably still is considered a sleepy little hollow.
Yep.
But I think things are slowly coming out of the box here in Tasmania like that. I don't think it's quite the sleepy little place that you'd remember it as a kid. I mean,
Right.
I don't, and I guess that's the pace of change everywhere too. I mean, Australia-wide now, 24-hour trading's the way things are, isn't it? The supermarket's open for, most of the night now, and, things have changed like that. I remember as a child, my father sort of fussing about needing to get to the service station because he didn't know which one was going to be on roster on the weekend. Well, they're open 24 hours a day now, aren't they? And yes, Tasmania was probably a bit slower to take up those things, but yeah, I think it's caught up in pace now, which is a good and a bad thing, I think, depending on which way you look at it, as you'd know.
I
Once
think
the pace,
it's good to see it the overall state sort of in a way of sort of incline, evolving up until this point, where obviously it was fairly stagnant for a while there too, but it's certainly, at least it hasn't gone backwards, it's going forwards.
Oh, it is, and I think during the late 90s, Tasmania was a place that young people got to the sort of age of needing employment, and they moved away to the mainland to find a job. And until this coronavirus thing, I think there'd been a real U-turn there. Things had changed. People were coming to Tasmania looking for jobs.
Mm.
So things were a lot more optimistic, for our young people. Let's hope that it continues that way, I guess.
Mm. And what about the north? Do you ever sort of go to the north part of the state much these days, or you sort of stick to the south part?
No, I do. I travel a lot for my job.
To the north part of the state?
Yeah, and my wife's family actually live in the northwest of Tasmania.
Yep.
So, I do travel to the north part of the state a fair bit.
And what have you seen over there the last 2 decades? Is anything much change? Is it sort of evolving like the Hobart area?
Oh, it is. I think it's been a bit slower to evolve than the Hobart area, maybe the northwest corner of Tasmania. It's interesting to me. I think the gap's slowly closing. But for example, the difference in wages just between the northwest of Tasmania and the southeast of Tasmania. It's always amazed me that, for example, my trade, a refrigeration mechanic, a firm in the northwest of Tasmania would be probably paying $3 or $4 an hour less than a firm in Hobart. And you're only talking a few hundred kilometres away in the same state. I think that gap's closed over the last couple of years, but there still is a gap there. I think part of that's been in the sort of north and northwest of Tasmania. There's been some big industry that at times has struggled, and been some sort of mass layoffs of people over the years when companies have folded and so on. And in southeast of Tasmania, it hasn't really been driven by those sort of big players. It's been more small industry and the tourism market. Yeah, I don't know, but
that's some interesting stuff you've told me, Chris. Some really interesting things, and certainly learning a bit about what's going on, in Tassie. Even though the only time I really get to go there over the last 2 decades is catching up with some family, going to funerals and stuff like that. So it's interesting to find actually what's happening there, because I haven't really been studying it, focusing on what's actually happening there in too much detail. So it's really good to get a local insight as to an old friend's insight as to what's actually going on there, mate. I guess I'm going to give it over to you. It must be a few questions you want to ask me. Your turn to ask me a couple of questions.
Oh, well.
Couple of two or three.
So, okay, 2 or 3. Well, you're an accountant. So you're self-employed now, Tim?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about my place that I work for is that I guess I've been working at the same place since May 2000. So that's
wow,
over 20 years as an accountant tax agent. Back then, first pay was like 26 grand a year. I remember was quite low back, when I first started out. Coming out of uni. So same place for the last 20 years. I bought into the practice in 2008. So I became one of the owners in 2008, and we've currently got about 15 staff, 2 other directors apart from myself, so 3 director practice. So that's my career basically, and I've obviously tried to, I guess my way of sort of doing things with my career is getting out there and networking a bit. Most of our, new clients come from existing, word of mouth referrals, that sort of thing. So that's how it generally works. And met so many people over the last 20 years up here, mate. That's why it's such a small place for me.
And no, it doesn't really surprise me you've been at the same place you started at when you left uni, because you're always someone that had a goal in mind and was very determined. And once you started something, you stuck at it. And
definitely,
it also doesn't surprise me you're an accountant. I clearly remember your fascination with sports statistics.
Still have a fascination with statistics a little bit to this day. I've gone through different phases of different things in my life that have been, that I'm interested in following. From back in the early, back when I was young, it was NBA basketball, and I still love NBA basketball. I still follow NBA basketball even to this day. AFL, I've always followed the AFL, and I love how Richmond Tigers been going the last few years.
Yeah, well, you'd be a happy punter with the way Richmond have gone the last few years.
So, and then the other thing that's become more of an interest only in the last 4 or so years is mixed martial arts, and
I've noticed that on your Facebook.
So I don't miss a show. I don't miss a show of UFC at the moment. If there's a UFC show on a weekend, I'll make sure and watch that on TV, and I'll even travel to Auckland to watch a show.
Wow, that's a pretty brutal thing, mixed martial arts.
Oh, it is very much so. I've made a couple of good friends here in Brisbane who have been. I guess the UFC is the global organisation. It's the worldwide league, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
The number 1 worldwide league, and I've had 2 mates who've actually fought in the UFC. Good friends in Brisbane. So different weight classes. There's like 9 different weight classes they have. So it's been good to follow their journey over the last 3 or 4 years. It's been something to behold, that's for sure. So you definitely go through different phases, and that's the phase at the moment is mixed martial arts and the UFC and that sort of thing. Yeah.
And I can't imagine you getting in the ring yourself, or am I mistaken there?
No, I guess you wouldn't see me fight per se. I don't think you wouldn't see me go that far. But I mean, I have done a bit of training here and there. Not,
Yeah.
One of my, as I said, one of those fighters is now he's at his own gym for the last 12 months, about a 15-20 minute drive. So I can, anytime I want to go up and train at his gym, I can just do that for free anyway. So. And do a bit of jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is not bad. I don't know if you've ever done any of that sort of stuff, but rolling with jiu-jitsu. But it's very, it's probably one of the most fascinating martial arts out there is jiu-jitsu. And if you look it up and have a bit of a look, but it's submission, grappling, all that sort of stuff. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a bit more. It's not about punching someone in the face and trying to beat them. It's more of a case of trying to work out how to choke them out or make them tap to some sort of leg break or an arm, break their arm or something.
Do you ever remember Justin Reason? Fella used to live around the corner from us when we were growing up.
Yeah, so I remember Justin and Brendan Reason. I think Brendan was my age, and I think Justin was 2 years above me.
Yeah, Justin a bit older than you. A little bit older than me.
Justin was more the surfer type.
Yeah.
So what about?
I believe he won a Australian Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu championship.
Didn't know that.
Pretty able man in that sport.
Is that more? How long ago is that?
It's only in recent years, I believe.
Because he'd be 40 plus.
Yeah, he'd be 40 plus. He's a couple of years older than me, I think. Yeah.
Because you're I'm 42. You must be 43.
I'm 43. Yeah.
Yeah. He'd be about 44 probably.
He'd be 44, 45, Justin. Yeah.
Right.
No.
Haven't heard that name for a long, long time.
Yeah, he's pretty able in that area, I believe. No, and you still have an interest in the American football, Tim?
No, I don't actually. I mean, you can't sort of follow everything, and
yeah,
no, I can't sort of. I mean, I followed NFL when I was more than half my life ago, really. A long time ago. I probably followed it only for a couple of years. It's a bit like soccer. I followed it for not too long a period of time, But so yeah, but I remember one of those pictures actually. There was a picture that I saw. I was going through an old photo, some old photos that Mum must have saved, and there's this one photo out the front of the place at Baluch Street, at 42 Baluch Street. And in the photo, there was this Japanese student. I don't know if you remember Japanese students, but there was a photo. There's a Japanese student, and there's Chris. There's yourself. There's Jean. There's myself. We're all sort of dressed there, and I've got this bloody LA Raiders rubber gridiron ball.
I think I dimly remember some Japanese exchange students at your place too.
Yeah, they used to come. There would have been at least a few of them. There was definitely a few of those students over the years, and I mean one thing. Sorry.
Did you ever do the exchange thing and go overseas as an exchange student?
One thing I do regret in my life somewhat is I won a subject prize at school in year 10 for Japanese. So top of the class, top of Clarence High. And I did it for the next couple of years before I started going to uni. I obviously excelled and did pretty well year 12, I think, year 11, year 12. And then it basically just, I really stopped and focused on business and focused on accounting and sort of went down that path. So one of my regrets was taking a little bit, was not trying to take that a bit further and see what would happen, One of those what if scenarios and went that way instead of that way. And I only went to Japan for the first time ever last year. That was the first time I ever went, and first time I've ever been to Tokyo was last year. And oddly enough, we were just talking about one of the reasons I sort of found an excuse to go over there was one of my Vietnamese mates who fought in the UFC had a fight over in Tokyo, so it was a good excuse to see Tokyo for just over a year ago actually.
And did your Japanese language skills hold up while you were there?
I remembered some of my language skills. Certainly, some of it came back to me, but no, it was pretty. It was pretty. I'm not guessing you've ever been to Japan, but
no.
You can remember some stuff. When your memory retention is probably about 50 things like that, so you probably wouldn't be able to go any deeper than that. But to be obviously very good at Japanese, how it used to be back in the day, you'd know probably 1,000 things.
I think it's a pretty difficult ask to try and converse with people who are really fluent in their local language and expect to keep up, isn't it? I know I did a job a couple of years ago with it was a Spanish and an Italian fella that actually came to Tasmania with this particular industrial equipment. They were the experts with the gear. Both of them spoke fluent English, really easy to understand, but they could not understand a word I said.
No.
They kept telling me to slow down and said I didn't speak English. I spoke Tasmanian. And it becomes quite noticeable, even if you really, if you've been taught another language from another language, to actually be fluent with the local lingo is probably a big ask, I think, isn't it?
It is a big ask, but even 20 years later, I can still understand what you're saying. So.
Yeah, and I speak Tasmanian.
But I think most people in Australia should be able to understand one another quite well. Hope to within a probably better than different states in America, but it's
there is certainly accents.
There is accents. There's A's and there's all that sort of stuff and this and that and different names for different people. And then over the ditch, it's different again. And they've got different accents, harder to understand. Sucks and
Cuzzy bros.
Cuzzy bros and fucking all the different things. The vowels sound completely different over there. So
do you reckon? I know it's a totally different Asian nation, but do you reckon the fact of having exchange students at your house as a kid influenced Nick in moving overseas?
I think I'll tell a little story. I remember, so we could talk for hours on this sort of stuff. But Nick, when I first came up to Brisbane, right? So think year 2000. The first place that I shared a flat with was with my brother, and he was the most disgusting person to ever live, and that sort of thing. So lasted that first year on the south side. That was it. Never lived with him ever again. But I remember sort of in that first year or so, there was some sort of Chinese connection, and the way I'd even talk to these Chinese people, it was like, what is he treating him dumb, or what's he what's he doing? Like, you'd get these Chinese people around to the house that I had or whatever, and he'd just say, "You want to go Gold Coast?" All this sort of the way he'd sort of talk, and then it was a little bit. Then he moved in. He moved back. My parents moved up in, and they all sort of had a house in 2002, a place called Bridgman Downs. So, and he actually moved in there for a while, selling cars. He was selling cars.
Oh, why doesn't that surprise me?
He was selling cars, and he used to work at Tip Top Bakeries, and then he was selling cars. He probably wrote a car off or something, but he was good at selling them. He was doing okay, and then for whatever reason, and it just sort of all clicked together, he decided he'd go over to China. This is in late 2002, so 18 years ago, and he basically forged a teaching degree. Forged a teaching degry.
This does not surprise me in the slightest.
And probably borrowed something of mine. Who fucking knows what he stole? He copied out of my stuff. And then so he went over there, and I don't know exactly what sort of basis he'd go to China, what sort of visas they had, or I can't remember. 2002 is a different story to now, probably. But anyway, within a year or so, he's married to somebody chick over there, right? One Lou. So yeah, that's how he's always had that sort of fascination, and and then he sort of moved. You probably heard of Wuhan in the news.
Oh, I think we've all heard of Wuhan now.
So that's where his wife came from, Wuhan. Okay, and that's the first place that he was teaching English at. It was in Wuhan, in that sort of province or whatever. So, and then eventually, after a couple of years, obviously they moved from there into Shenzhen, which is right next door to Hong Kong. So that's where we've been for at least probably the last 16 or so years, as basically you can just walk over the border from Hong Kong into that part of China. When you used to be able to do it, at the moment, I don't think you can. I think you've got to wait 2 weeks to go across the border. You're quarantined for 2 weeks or something, So he hasn't been into Hong Kong since February.
Such a dramatically different place to where he grew up, eh?
Oh yeah, yeah, and he's so, you could just see in that video, he's just so, he's Chinese, you know. He's Chinese.
And you've got another younger brother, haven't you,
Yeah,
Christopher?
Christopher's married. He's married, one child now. He lives down the Gold Coast actually. He lives near
Yep.
Burleigh, down near Burleigh, not far,
Yep.
not too far from the beach. 2 dogs in a townhouse. It's a bit funny,
Okay.
but 2 dogs and a little baby that's probably 7 or 8 months old.
Yeah, nice.
So he's
And what's he do for a job?
He's followed his dad's career in a way. He sort of worked. He still works at the Bendigo Bank.
There you go.
Less than about a half an hour drive up the road there. But yeah, he's pretty smart. He's switched on. Completely different to Nick, but switched on, and certainly, yeah, they're all doing well.
No, nice. And so, how long have you been married to?
2013 in Vegas, we got married.
Vegas.
I didn't meet her in Vegas, but it was
not a spur of the moment thing in Vegas.
No, so I had a long-term relationship for about 9 years. That's about 2010. A bit older lady, didn't sort of work out. And then met Fiona 9 years ago, just over 9 years ago, in 2011. New Zealander, but obviously moved to Australia when she was 7. She's got
that explains the Queenstown connection, no?
A little bit, yeah. She used to go there all the time. Yeah, before she met, she'd probably been there 7 or 8 times. Yeah. So yeah, just one of those instant things, I guess. It was I think it was an eHarmony date back on Mother's Day, 2011.
There you go.
And Vegas in February 13, I think it was. We went over there. It was a small. Mum and Dad went over. Christopher and Nick were over there. One of my best mates, Matt, who was the first flatmate I moved into in that fucking shit old place in 2020, he came as well. And Fiona's dad and Fiona's mum went as well, and there was just the 10 of us, I think. And Christopher's current wife was only very new at that stage, but she obviously married Christopher, but they'd only been going about 6 months at that stage. So it was just the 10 of us, and it was just a Vegas wedding, and that was like the honeymoon. I think we saved a bit of wedding money though, doing it that way.
No, it's not a bad idea to have the wedding and the honeymoon in one, I don't think.
Yeah, so that was that. So probably got one last question. if you
Go for it. Should.
No, you've got one last question.
I've got one last question. Ooh.
If you want, we probably got to wrap this up soon.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure as soon as you wrap it up, I'll think of the question I wanted to ask. So your mum and dad doing well. They live local enough that you see
it's
them.
About an hour from here now. They used to live a bit closer, but they were doing the caravan thing for a while, as I said. And, they bought this basically off a plan. So it was it's a 8 or 9 story unit complex overlooking the river. I've only been there once. I've only been in there since Easter. So I'm going to go up there next month, obviously, to see them again. But it's only an hour. It's about an hour drive. So.
And your dad, and I noticed, I saw on Facebook last year, maybe you were well into it too, into Apex.
Yeah, so since 2003, I've been part of Apex, 3 different clubs in Brisbane. Me and my wife are in the Brisbane City Club at the moment.
Yeah. Your dad was a big contributor to Apex as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, definitely. He's still, and he's after all these years, he's the chair.
Oh wow, still.
The Apex Foundation. So the Apex Foundation, I think he's been part of since he was 45. So probably more than 20 years he's been part of the Apex Foundation. That's after you retire as an Apexian. So, he's been, which is looking after all these charities and trusts and stuff like that. So yeah, no, he's definitely been involved, but I've been involved since 2003. I was pretty young when I first joined APEX, I think, Sandgate Club. So we used to have state boards. I think I was a Queensland State Treasurer twice, the State Secretary. So I've done it, and I've been the club presidents at least 4 times, I think, as you do. But our club's fairly small. I think we've only got about 11 members at the moment, so it's a good mix of different people. But it's one of those things, hard to get members, hard to get membership. If a club can survive on that sort of numbers, but you wouldn't want too many less than 11 people. And at the moment with COVID and all that sort of stuff, we've shut down doing we haven't done any service work.
The coronavirus thing is going to be devastating for charities.
Yeah, but I'd run a golf day every year. I think I've probably ran about a dozen golf days. And that's one thing I have got into, actually, golf. One thing I've got into over the last decade or so. I enjoy playing golf. So
it's one thing I could never, ever seem to get excited about. I've tried a couple of times over the years, and it's just never done it for me. But each to their own. It is a very popular thing, isn't it? I think the last time I played golf, it involved a lot of beer in the golf caddy, and we almost got kicked off the Royal Golf Course in Launceston.
You want to enjoy it. I mean, you want to have a good time. So, I mean, with the golf days, it is about having a good time. You always get in a group of 4 and just go and just take the best shot, just sit and take the best shot. Drink beer, charity auctions, prizes. Yeah, it's a fun. Those are always fun days. And at the end of the day, the amount of money that I've probably helped raise for charity, probably 100. You're looking at close to 100K over 12 years. So it's good.
Yeah, wow.
It's good that you can donate it to. Because Fiona's brother's got MS and epilepsy. All these different charities that are out there. Young Care. I don't know if have you heard of Young Care?
I haven't. What do Young Care do?
So Young Care is it's sort of connected a little bit with MS, but it's more of a case of younger people shouldn't be in aged care homes.
Okay. Yeah.
So Young Care is building purpose-built facilities to be able to deal with the younger generation that have those sort of immune issues with MS or that sort of thing. So we've supported them a few times. Guide dogs, leukemia. Yeah, so it's been some good charities that we have supported.
That's an excellent initiative. I know that as a kid, always used to go and visit an old lady with my mother that had been in an aged care home since she was quite a young lady. Through health issues, and it is a cruel thing for young people to be in aged care. Excellent.
Mate, I think we might have to just about wrap it up, but it's been so good to catch up with you, mate. It's been great to be able to sit down, have a good chat, which we haven't had done for so many years.
It's been good to have a chat with you, Tim.
It's finding it's a bit of a way to sort of find out about what people have been up to. So this is the 5th one I've done, 5th episode I've done, I think. And the other 4 people that I've had on, apart from maybe Daniel, the first episode, everybody else I haven't sort of had as much close ties with over the years. So it's a great way to find out what they've been up to. It's a great thing, if they've had any adversity in their life, how they've sort of gone and what's we could have spent 15 minutes talking about music, I'm sure.
I'm sure we could. While I've got you there, we better apologise to the old man for all the grog we drank out of his wonderful spirits cabinet when we were growing up.
Yeah, sorry, Dad. We're really, really sorry about that. We drunk $1,000 worth of alcohol out of his cabinet over probably 3 or 4 years or whatever it was.
I think your younger brother was the main instigator of that.
I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was, but I've got to apologise on his behalf as well. But, mate, what time do you start work tomorrow?
I work pretty civilised hours. Don't start till 8:30 in the morning.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Great to talk to you, man. I hope to talk to you again, not in the not too distant future. Certainly, it's been great. It's been something that happy that we had this conversation and been able to catch up. And it's great, and it's one of those things that I can always look back on and see what we sort of chatted about. It's great.
That's it. And next time you're down this direction, don't be a stranger, Tim. And
no, I won't be a stranger.
I'm up your direction.
No, that's okay. That's fine, mate. That's what it's all about. These things, you obviously go through life and you don't see one another for a long time for however it happens, So it's just really good that we've had this chance to catch up, and this is a good way to do it over Zoom.
Excellent. Good to talk to you, mate.
Okay, mate. No worries. I'll keep in touch, messaging you over on Facebook and stuff like that, mate. So no worries.
Do that. Catch you, Tim.
See ya.
Bye.